Okay, I've been getting a lot of requests to do some Unreal Engine stuff, like kind of my workflow and whatnot. Oh crap, let's see. I better get rid of that. Okay, anyway, yes, um, so this is the Unreal website, Epic Games, and you can click on the download button here. It'll just download the installer. A lot of you probably already have it on here, and this is completely irrelevant, so we can ignore that for now. If you don't have it, that's where you get it. So let's go ahead and launch Unreal. Just take a second here. And I only have one screen recording, and I'll try to keep everything, well, I will keep everything on the screen. I usually use two screens. I use one as my kind of work screen, and then my other screen is kind of my viewport, but we'll do everything here. So here's a library of stuff. These are all just projects that I've already done. And then if you buy stuff from the marketplace, it actually shows up down here in your vault, which is in your library tab. So I have some kind of cool stuff. I'm trying to see here if there's anything that I use often. Here's Ultra Dynamic Sky. This is pretty cool. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but this is those clouds where I was kind of flying through the clouds when the sun was rising. I used Ultra Dynamic Sky for that scene. So let's just create a new project, and the newest stable version is 5.2.1. I kind of go back and forth because sometimes things act a little weird on this version with the lighting, and I go back to this version. And sometimes things act weird on this version, and I'll go to this one. So it kind of just depends on when you're working in a project. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start with the 5.1 and just kind of see what we can make. So go ahead and launch that. And I've had a lot of you guys message me and be like, "Oh man, this is really overwhelming when I first open it and what it looks like," and it is. It's got a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, if this is the first time you're using this, right here, it's going to say compiling shaders, and it will take probably 5 minutes or so. It'll only do it one time, and then after that, it'll open pretty fast. I don't know, here, probably about 20 seconds or so. There's a lot of stuff it has to chew through to open the program. Okay. So let's see what I always do, and again, there's probably all kinds of different ways to do this. This is just how I do it. I always create a film and video blank event. I always turn on ray tracing, and then this is your root folder. Like basically, you can create your a folder on whatever drive you want. This one's on the F drive. It's my Unreal Engine projects, and then it creates a folder, or it creates a folder within that. So I'll call this like let's just do like test. Okay. So now it's gonna do this little number one more time. Actually, I think this is the window that sometimes can take a while to compile all the shaders. Just wait on this for a second. And boy, I hope this is recording. Drink a little coffee. This is where you can go get some coffee. Go to the bathroom. Do some stretches. Okay, here we go. Now we're in business. All right. This is what starts up. You know what? Ignore all this stuff. Dismiss. We'll just update. It doesn't. I'm not exactly sure what that even does, but I just hit update. And this is the screen you start with. First thing, there's a lot of this like random stuff on your screen. All this kind of stuff right here. You can hit G, and that will hide all of that. So that's the first thing. Second thing, this is your floor. This is kind of like when you start off in Blender, you have the, is it a plane or a cube? And Cinema, I don't think you have anything. So I just kind of like leave this as a kind of a starting point. And for whatever reason, So Z depth is up and down. So, you know, in cinema, Y is up and down. Well, in Unreal, Z is up and down. And I believe it's like that in Blender. Z axis is up and down as well. Anyway, it starts at 20. I just zero that out to 1 or to 0. Now, there's a few settings I always start with, and I do this on pretty much every single project I ever start up. Go up to Edit, Editor Preferences. We're going to type in Camera. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to turn off Preview Selected Cameras. And the reason is because, I'll just move this out of the way. If I create a camera, so I'll come up here to this little plus sign, Cinematic, this camera actor right here, just click on that. If that's checked on, so if we check that back on, when you are on the camera and you're working right here, it takes up a pretty huge chunk of your screen right here. So anytime you click on the camera, you're like, I want to move it, you're like, oh crap. Like, so you have this huge camera thing, you know, this preview image, which, you know, it can be useful, but for me personally, it's annoying, so I turn it off. And that's just, again, that's in your editor preferences, and you scroll down just a little ways, or I'm sorry, you type in camera actually, and then scroll down a little bit, and then just uncheck that. Okay, that's the only thing I do in the editor preferences. Project settings. So we're going to open that up now. We're just going to type in tracing. We're going to enable use hardware ray tracing when available. And what that does, I've found, is if you have an area light, specifically an area light, not a point light that I'm aware of, but an area light, it causes the bounce light off the floors and off walls and stuff to react more realistic, I think. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that helps with that. So it enables, so any ray tracing stuff going on in your scene, it's gonna use it when it's available from that light. So that's, I think, tracing. Yeah, it's the only thing I do in project settings. And then, so we have these, again, it's under edit, these three things. Plugins, I enable the modeling toolkit. So if you type in modeling tools, editor mode, we'll just go ahead and enable that. It's going to say, hey, this is beta, it's kind of sketchy, sure you want to use it? Absolutely, I want to use it. And then you'll have to restart. However, don't be afraid, because now when you restart it, it'll only take a few seconds. It'll ask if you want to save anything. You can just hit save, and then it's going to restart real quick. Because I remember the first time I did this, and I hit that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to wait 10 more minutes for this thing to restart, and didn't have to wait. I only had to wait, you know, a couple seconds. Again, this is where you take a drink of coffee, and then there you go, just like that. Okay, so now I kind of got everything set up the way I want it. Now, for me, my style and the stuff that I like to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete a lot of this stuff out of here. So I'm going to delete, basically it starts with this default lighting setup every time, which is, and I'm going to be honest, some of this stuff I don't even know what it does. So I'm going to get rid of that. Anything that's a light or is like a reflection or a light or any kind of light source, we're going to delete it. So get rid of that player start. We don't really need that, because that's just like if you go to preview like the in-game mode, that's where your person would start. I don't use that, so I'm going to delete that. This is newish. I'm just going to leave it because it's not really doing, it doesn't take up any space in your viewer. Light source, delete. Atmospheric fog, delete. Yes, get rid of all of it. So now we have nothing. Alright, so we're going to add a light. Just get a feel for a scene here. So I'm going to, so this is kind of how you add lights and cameras, this button right here. We're going to add a light. Rectangular light, or an area light essentially is what it is. I'm going to switch this to movable, and it tells you right here what movable means. You got more, it's got the dynamic, so like dynamic shadows. It's a little bit slower at rendering, but not, I mean, if you have a pretty decent computer, I've never noticed that much of a difference. Again, this is how I do it, probably completely wrong on a lot of things, and definitely probably don't want to do this for games or even any like movie setups or whatnot. But again, I'm just doing it the way I do it, and I'm showing you guys, and hopefully it helps you a little. So I just switch that to movable. Always zero it out. Now we're going to start kind of like manipulating it a little bit. I am going to add a, let's see here. I'm just going to add a character from my library. And again, a lot of things on the Epic marketplace. There's a lot of free stuff. And so one thing I kind of use for scale, setting up a scene, is there's this UE4 mannequin mobile right here, and it's a scale thing. So I just add this guy to the beginning of almost every scene to kind of set the scale. So if I add it to the project and you're like, oh crap, like, you know, this isn't going to work, it's not compatible with your project. So you click show all projects, and it's still, let's see, where is it, test? Right here. We'll just click on that, but it's not compatible. Well, that's, you know, just click this little drop down here and just select the very bottom one, and then just add it to your project. That's all you got to do. And then after like 2 seconds, if you look over here, it's your dudes right here. And I'll show you how to pull them up. What I like to do is, because I work with this, I like maximizing my viewport, I go ahead and I make these icons a little smaller. So if you just go to settings, thumbnail size, small, mesh. So he's going to be in the mesh because it's a mesh. So here's our little guy. We'll just drag him right out here to the scene, zero him out real quick. And as you can see here, look at this. We already got something going on here. Again, you can hit G if you want to get rid of the floor and a little light up here. But let's view them through the camera. So a few things. So if you go to perspective up here, camera, now we're looking through the camera. As you can see, it's a little out of focus because it's already got a pretty low aperture. So I'm going to swing them around here just to kind of get a, just look from the back, just something like that. If you're coming from Instagram, for example, and you're used to the 4:5 aspect ratio, which is what a lot of my stuff is in. If you look over here, this is kind of like in Cinema or in Blender, your details, like your outliner, stuff like that. It's the same thing, same type of deal. So you, just like in Blender or Cinema, you click on your camera and you got all your settings. So it's the same exact thing. So we click on our camera. To set the aspect ratio, it's kind of weird because you have to do it twice. You have to do it in here, and then you have to do it in your render settings, which we'll get to. So right here, for the camera, it's called film back right here. Its default is a 16:9 aspect ratio, so you know, standard 1920 by 1080 or 2K or 4K or whatever. Now, if you want to do a 4:5, you change your sensor width to 20. Height to 25, and then you have a 4:5 aspect ratio. Let's go ahead and scale up the floor a little bit. Just oh yeah, I'm sorry. To switch around with your scale, rotate, move, you just hit spacebar to switch between them all. Super easy. You have your snapping options right here. So scale snapping, rotation snapping, movement snapping. So it actually snaps like by the little grid spaces. You can rotate snapping as well. You can turn that off if you don't. You just click on that to turn it off and on. So that's how that works. Let's move that back. I just moved it a little bit. Okay. So now we have a scene. We got a dude. We got a floor. Let's add some stuff to it to make it look a little less crappy. So it's actually really easy to do to like get a look going for a scene. So we are going to add some Quixel assets. So all you have to do, click add Quixel content. Wait for that to load up for just a second. Okay. So I'm going to go down to my stuff that's already on my computer, and let's just add this little rock formation. So the cool thing about Unreal is Nanite. And Nanite basically enables you to have an unbelievable amount of detail in your scene, and it barely makes a dent in the performance of your computer. which is insane because that was the whole thing forever in gaming, right? You had to make everything super low poly and have all the UVs for everything like packed into one map and all this stuff. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this in and you can see how crazy it is, how detailed it is, and how it just really makes stuff look so cool. So I'm gonna pull this scene in, or this asset in real quick. So if you don't have it downloaded, what you would do, find whatever you want, like a skull. Like I didn't even know they had skulls now. That's pretty amazing. You want to make sure it's on Nanite. You would download it, and then it would show up in your local library here. So again, I'm going to do this one right here. So Nanite is selected, add. You can see it popped into my content browser right here. You simply just drag it right out here. Look at that. Is that not crazy? I mean, here, I'm going to get off the camera. So I'm just going to exit this. You hit the little eject button to come out, like to exit the camera mode. So back in just like normal perspective. And you move around the same way you would like if you were playing a video game. You use the A, S, D, and W keys while holding down your right mouse button. And you can just move around just like you would in a game. But look at this. Isn't that crazy looking? Like that's so detailed. It's pretty amazing. So we'll go back to camera mode. So click on this. Back to your camera. And you can set, again, just like a normal camera, you can set your focal length. You can set your apertures. I'm going to go ahead and set it to like a 6, so it just sharpens everything up. You can actually, focus settings. You can do a manual focus, just like you would like Octane, for example. Just eyedropper, click on what you want to be in focus. Or, let's say you're moving the camera around and you want this dude to be in focus the whole time, no matter how far or close you get to him. You would select tracking, and that gives you a little drop down, and then you eyedropper, and now this guy will be in focus. Like you can go, all over. He'll stay in focus the whole time. So that's fun. Anyway, I'll just leave it like that for now. So we've got this. Let's say we want to duplicate it. Okay, just hold down Alt and just drag it over. Change it around a little. Maybe this is a little walkway. Maybe scale this up a little or something like that. Push it back. And if you can see, it's kind of getting dark back there, and it's the light's not encompassing a lot of the scene. Well, if you go to your light setting here, the attenuation radius, if you crank that up a little bit, it starts to illuminate more of the scene, which is kind of nice. And then this is your light power, really like cranks up. And there's a couple other things that I do in here that kind of help set the mood for a scene. So you have these things, the indirect light intensity. So as you can see here, if you pull that up, the light bouncing off the ground, reflecting back onto your character or your objects or whatever, is intensified a lot. If you turn it all the way down, see how it goes away. Now this right here, I use all the time, and I'll show you how we add fog to a scene here in just a second. And then again, this has to do with fog. I click the Advanced tab and I go down to Cast Volumetric Shadows, because what that does basically is anything, it creates the shadow of an object in front of the light in that fog, so it creates those light shafts. So we'll do that right now. Let's go up here and we'll go ahead and add some fog. So we're going to go to Visual Effects, Exponential Height Fog. So that's your fog. Cool, nothing happened, right? So there's a few things you have to do, and you'll do this. I do this every time. Again, this is probably the wrong way to do it, but this is how I do it. So I'm going to go ahead and set my fog density to 0.1, and I'm going to turn on volumetric fog. And you're like, oh cool, well now everything's blue. That looks kind of stupid. We're going to change that here in just a second. So again, fog density, volumetric fog. Okay, so this is the part that I'm not exactly sure if I do it right or not, but again, I do it like this for all my stuff. So you can do it this way, or you can figure out probably the right way to do it, but this is how I do it. You go to Build, and you go to Build Lighting Only. So you just click on that once. It's gonna kind of chew through the lighting, see all the reflections and bounces and all that stuff. Usually it's good to do this at the beginning of your project when you're kind of first getting started. You can see here, it doesn't take like a super long time. See, I think the more things, more objects that you have in a scene, this, I think, is a lot higher, so you kind of want to do it closer to the beginning of your project. I think. Well, that's chowing down through that. I'm gonna find some music to listen to for myself while we're doing this. Hope you all are having a fantastic Friday. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. I just got back from the dentist because I ripped a filling out of my tooth. So that's what's going on in my life right now. It's also really, really hot. It's really hot. Oh, like 115 heat index. It's crazy. Okay. Lighting, just finished building. Now you can see, oh, okay, this is starting to look a little bit more like what we're used to, like the volumetric type fog stuff. If you move the light, like in front of your guy here, and kind of do one of these, you'll start to see that there's more like shadowing and some like light shafts, especially if you, this is where this volumetric light or volumetric scattering intensity kind of plays. You see that? You crank that up and now you can start seeing some more intense like light shafts and whatnot. Of course, if you have some objects in front of it, like some hills, mountains, whatever, your trees, like a lot of the trees that I do, this is the same setup, and those branches and leaves create awesome like God rays coming off of it. There's a little bit you can see right here. So there's a way to control fog that's through the volumetric scattering intensity, and then you go back to the exponential height fog, and you can also control it through this. Like one crazy is super extreme. You like 0.02, 0.5, 0.1. And then you have this the extinction scale, so that basically like pulls the fog depth closer to you. So if you put it like at 3, you can only see so far in front of you, right? You put it at 2, you can see a little further back, 1 a little more further back, and so on. So anyway, that's kind of, again, this is gonna be, I say, a shorter video. It's probably already like, what are we, yeah, we're 20 minutes in. That's how I start my scenes. Hopefully this kind of gets you guys going. I'll get a little bit more in depth, hopefully with some more tutorial type stuff. Materials, objects, bringing in cloth, bringing in, for cinema users, bringing in cloners, and then switching those cloners out with actual nanite geometry. So if you have, let's say, cloners of rocks floating around in cinema, you bring them in here, and then you can switch those out with nanite, and you have super crazy high detailed like rocks and floating debris and stuff that look just absolutely incredible. Anyway, yeah, so hopefully this becomes more of a tutorial session, and I can like do more episodes and kind of give you guys more of a breakdown of what I do and how I use the program. So I hope that this gets you guys started. Again, this is probably, a lot of this is wrong, but it's really like, that's kind of my main setup, and it doesn't take me 20 minutes to do whenever I do it myself. This whole thing that I just showed you guys, it takes 20 minutes, takes me like 3 or 4 minutes to get going whenever I'm doing it myself. So anyway, yeah, I hope this helps you guys.